gamers all around the world. Today we got a little reaction to my video comments, reaction to reaction. So as you guys know or may not know, I released a video 2-3 days ago talking about the video is called Paradox of the Best Civilization AOE4, and it's basically me talking about win rates don't really matter. At the end of the day, what matters the most is like having fun and just playing what you like. Because, you know, I felt like people were a little bit too obsessed with win rates. Like, oh my god, my Civ has 49.3% win rate, it's unplayable kind of thing. So I thought it was just kind of like a video like, hey guys, you know, chillax. Like, not everything is about Civ win rates. It's a game. Especially if you're in lower leagues. I even mentioned, even at higher leagues where people are competing, we can see like some people even playing English and Mongols all the time. And like, yeah, some matchups are favored to one Civ, but it's not the end of the world. And just enjoy the game, right? Rather than switching Civs every time some Civ has over 50% win rate and switching to it. Just gotta play what you like and find a way to make it work, right? So, Enemy Cake made a post dropping truths about win rate obsession. There's 3 Reddit threads. You'll see this one. It kind of goes like this, and then it kind of goes down, right? We'll quickly go through it, and some of the comments I was just like, okay. Some of the comments I agree, some of the comments I disagree with. So let's go. This is sorted by top, so I'm not gonna read every single comment, but you know, top 5-6 comments we'll go through. I agree or disagree with him. I give Beastyqt a lot of credit for keeping his finger on the pulse and jumping in discussion, responding to some of the most active discussions in the community. From my own view, I think it's 100% correct. The game is in a state where civs are even enough, where skill differential will determine the outcome of the match, not broken or OP civs. And it's also right that just because you are in the same league or elo banned as someone doesn't mean it's a perfect system. There will be still noticeable skill gaps that are way more significant than civ balance, which I agree. That is what I said, and I agree with that. So the reason why I'm showing you this one first is because this is I'm showing you the threads in order they're posted, right? In order that people posted and wrote stuff. Oh, 69 points, nice. He's here on Reddit looking closely to what Joe Blow let low Eloy is molding about. True. I am here actually, yeah. I was about to post this video myself. Honestly, I think it's really going to allow for me to play the game in a way that's more fun. I'm a silver player and I shouldn't be obsessing over win rates, but I was. Hearing the civ doesn't suck, you suck is actually kind of liberating. I wouldn't have been able to do anything about a civ sucking. All I could do was just not play it. If I'm the problem, then that means with more practice I can win while playing the civs I enjoy. Which again is kind of my point, right? Not to insult anyone, not to say like, yeah, you're all terrible at the game. I suck with English, right? I suck with certain civs. I used to suck with HRE and then I learned it and now I'm playing it, right? So this guy, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, I was obsessing over win rates and I'm in silver and I should be playing civs I enjoy. And again, that was kind of my point to make some people realize this. Then people are responding, this is super admirable, you come off as way cooler human with this swing of things. Community would be much more enjoyable if this was were the mindset of the sub. I feel like a lot of people would drastically improve with this mindset, and when I was a lot worse, I had a lot of, I don't know what I could have done better losses, but then I'd watch the replay and wonder how I even thought that in the first place, right? That's kind of how you improve, right? You lose if you want to improve. You lose if you know why you lost, go next game. If you don't know why you lost, you should figure that out, right? Because playing the games over and over without actually knowing what you're doing wrong, it's kind of pointless if you want to improve. There's clearly a guy that loves me. Ah, yes, finally Beast has provided a new opinion for us to have. But yeah, all civs are playable and win rates don't mean everything. I do value having statistics to disprove some blatant lies like X civ dominating the game. I agree with this, but at the same time, stats are not black and white. I hate when Reddit gets hold of any piece of data because they have zero clue on how to actually analyze it correctly. So, I mentioned this in the last video I made. HRE has lower than 50% win rate while having 7 positive win rate matchups and 1 negative, right? So a lot of people looked at that and said, oh, HRE sucks, it's under 50% win rate. But most of its losses come from French. So HRE struggles in one matchup, but is very good in the other matchup. But people saw like 48% win rate and they're like, yeah, AOE3 sucks. And that's the problem when just looking at the numbers and not going more into it, like why is that the case and stuff like that. Which again, even when you go into it, it doesn't mean that's exactly how it is. And I also feel like, and one of the threads someone wrote this, whenever people see 48% win rate, instead of saying, okay, out of 100 games, one civ wins 52 times, the other civ wins 48 times, right? That's what 52% win rate is. People somehow go to the conclusion that 48% win rate means the matchup is so unplayable and so imbalanced that they would rather switch to another civ than be that difference, than be the 48 people that win. And I find this a little weird, right? Because if the civ has 56+% win rate, or 55 even across all matchups, the civ is probably strong, maybe even too strong, right? But that still means that of 100 games, 45 games are won by the other civs, which is not extreme imbalance where you can't win the matchup. That's what I'm saying. The hive mind is finally gonna shut up and get back in queue. Good lord. So you can see, you know, people generally agree with me. Some people dislike me. You know, the usual, right? So now we go onto the onto this one. Now I haven't read this one because it's very long and I wanted to do it on stream. Let's go with it. This is the second post I was posted. Critical examination of Beastyst's latest video. So I don't know if this is positive or negative. This is a long essay. I try to stay away from wall of texts. Well, not great at it. Since you tend to lose a lot of readers the longer the text there goes, yada yada. This critical analysis of what Beasty said in the latest video. I would encourage everyone to watch the video. Okay. I share some points he brings up as their common sense, however, some I disagree with. To keep the analysis short, I will extract what I view as the most important points. Key points. The overall message Beasty conveys can be summed up in 3 points that he brings up. There's a massive skill difference in the high level base, which means all stats including diamond and above players incorporate a massive range of player skills. Thus, diamond and above filters for AOE4 worlds, so these things don't tell us the whole picture. True, I agree with that. A lot of people mistake how easy something is to play with balance. Also, I think it's true. And this is something that I talked about. I think part of the reason why Friends has such a high win rate is because it is the easiest civs to play. A civ to play. So whenever something is easier, especially lower levels, will have much higher win rate because it's easier to execute. There's less of a window for you to make mistakes, while other civs are harder to play, and if you make a mistake against French, you get punished for it, right? People are way too focused on the win rate, so people should focus more on what they enjoy playing. True. Point 1. There's a massive skill difference in high level player value, yada yada. This is absolutely true and very good point that needs to be mentioned when you try to talk about statistics regarding civilization balance. Beastyqt says himself that he was able to beat 2 diamond level players in 2 vs 1. To put this into perspective, that means Beasty won in 2 vs 1 where both of his opponents were in the top 6% of all players. Since there's such a gap between players even in higher leagues, and since every skill level comes with its own challenges for how to balance the game fairly, this raises a very solid question, a very valid question. How can we access the balance of the game accurately? The short answer, we can. Every statistic is flawed. Correct. Every statistic is flawed in one way or another. In a perfect world, you would have an infinitely large sample size. Right. If you had every matchup in every league, if you had millions and millions of games played from millions of different players, then you could maybe draw conclusions. And if the game has been out for longer than a year on the same patch, maybe 6 months is enough. I don't know. You would have unbiased measurements, and every effect on your data could be explained by something so that all of your variances are accounted for. In the real world, however, there is a missing data. There are effects that you can explain. There are outliers, and above all, there's no certainty whether your hypothesis or even the data itself, data set itself is correct or not. So far, every criticism for stats on AOE4 world I saw mentioned by Beast, some of which were mentioned here on the subreddit, are absolutely valid. Yes, the sample size is too small. Yes, A3 win rates are deflated by new players. And yes, the AOE4 world stats don't tell us the whole picture. But does that mean we can't extract anything out of statistics? No, we can. But it's not 100% in either way, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, right? It works both ways. I can be wrong about it and I can be right about it. But it's not 100%. Statistics can provide us with truths rather than provide it with approximations if we ask the right questions. What Beast does in the video showing the volatility of statistics is on one hand valid because it's true, on the other hand it is contentious and possibly harmful approach because with this argumentation you can always argue for the uselessness of every statistic. True. So to come back to the original point, how can we access yada yada? Okay. Certainly it is a little filtered. It is of little use to filter for bronze players and access the balanced state of the game based on data. The higher the skill level of the players, the better they use all full potential of their civ. Which is also something I said. If you look at bronze and silver win rates, and one civ has 80% win rate, should we nerf that civ? Right? I always say this, where is the cutoff for when something is too strong? What league? Because you can always make a point that the players are just not good enough. Right? That's the problem. And like even if you link up to top 30, you can always say top 10. You can always say people are not playing the civ well. So it's like, at what point do you nerf something? Or at what point is something OP? The higher the skill level of the players, okay. There are other factors we can account on: pick rates, matchups, maps, and tournament stats, which yada yada yada. For example, the French have been overperforming and absolutely doming the latter since release. I agree. Win rates, pick rates all draw a very decisive picture, and of course there are more things to incorporate. There's no way to be 100% certain, but it is very fair to assume that the French deserve a nerf. I'm deviating a bit from the original point, but I think I made my point clear above. Statistics are volatile and there is never 100% certainty, but that doesn't mean we should not use them at all. Like regarding French, I do think that French has always performed really well. I do think that, I've said this before, French's power is in feudal, and if French were to get nerfed in feudal, they would need a buff somewhere else because they fall off with their strength in Castle and Imperial because their best age is in feudal. So I'm not necessarily against nerfing French, by the way, just throwing that out there. If it's that big of a problem, and if the devs think that it's that big of a problem, they can nerf it. I don't mind it. But it would need some kind of compensation in later ages, in my opinion, to accompany that. Or you could just nerf something like, you know, villager production is a bit slower because they have faster villager production, or gathering buildings, they don't cost half, they cost like 25% less or something like that. You know, small adjustments. A lot of people mistake how easy something it is to play with balance. Let's think for a moment what it means for a civ to be easy. Maybe the civ has a clear route it can take in the game. That is the #1 point of making the civ easy, by the way. If a civ is not reactive, if it's a point A to point B, it is already easier than other civs. This is why people struggle with Delhi and China at lower levels, because they don't have make this, do this many units and push. French has that, English has that, and because of that, that makes it a lot easier to play because you know what your goal is, you know when you're supposed to push if you have a build order from anyone, and that's it. And if the units are obviously easy to use. Point A, base point of view, sacred sites. Well, I agree with you, but a lot of people don't know how to play Delhi. How you win the game is straightforward and easy to see that, so that eliminates the need to strategize and think too much about the general plan attack of the game. True. Bonuses and synergies don't need to be supervised and managed all the time to take effect. AKA China, right? Swapping your imperial officials. You know, with Delhi, you don't put like few workers on gold or stone and that's it. You constantly have to adjust depending what age and what point in the game you are in order to hit the castle faster, and then you get the keeps and all that. Instead of needing to do A, then B, and C repeatedly, you maybe have a passive bonus or one-time research you need to do to get your Civ bonus for the rest of the game. French Knights. Or French passive worker creation, or French gathering buildings costing cheaper. Those are all passive and they're easy to use. You don't really use them. You just play normally and they're used. Meanwhile, some other civs, their bonuses have to actively be used. Good point. Maybe the civ comes with units that put pressure on your opponent to counter them effectively rather than on you, French. That means you can lay back a little and have an easier time playing the game. French and English. English in lower leagues has very good win rate because people don't know how to engage longbows properly. Longbows have a massive range, they're easy to use, and they can defend really well, and they can attack, just like French Knights. All those things, though, have one crucial thing in common: they save APM, or rather, effective actions per minute, are the most valuable resources one has in a strategy game. Okay, yada yada. There's no 100% conversion between APM comparison and skill level, but still there's a pretty strong correlation between the two. I'm gonna disagree with that one. I don't think there's any correlation between those two. How do I put this? I do agree that more APM helps if you know what you're doing, but if you don't know what you're doing, I would rather have a player that has half the APM but knows what he's doing, right? So while it does help, it's not like, oh, you have this much APM, you should be this league kind of thing. Yeah, you can probably hit Conquer with 100 APM or less. So I don't know if that's what he meant, but yeah. What does this mean? Let's have a hypothetical match. China, 3 stars versus France, 1 star. If you play Chinese in Castle, the very fact you have so many things to manage with your Imperial Official puts you at a disadvantage against the French. That's what I literally, that's literally what I just said. I used an example of Imperial Officials against French that get their bonuses for free. As Chinese, they have 1,000 things to account for, which buildings to supervise. They would rather collect taxes. They want to spend more resources to get my dynasty bonus. Exactly. Like, all these are good points. All these are good points. On top of that, you gotta micro the army, you gotta defend the French harassment and all that. Cavalry unit that not only tanks a lot, but is mobile and hits like a truck, which is a consequence. As a consequence, puts a lot of pressure on the Chinese player, and so it is pretty clear that the Chinese player has more things to manage and worry about, thus reaches his APM ceiling faster than the French player. So no, I don't think people make mistake how easy it is to play a Civ with the balance. I think the difficulty of a Civ is one of the factor how balanced that Civ is. Of course, it is not the only factor, but it is one. I mean, listen, I wouldn't mind a nerf to French to make them harder to play. I don't know how, but I wouldn't mind that French... You know what would be a cool nerf? You know what would be a cool nerf? To have French Knights have to click to start healing. That is a good nerf. Maybe it's not enough, by the way. Maybe it still would need something. But that's how you make French harder to play. Have their heal on activation to heal, right? You have to click it and it's not passive. That makes the Civ much harder already. Like longbows, you can even make it just so you have to click it and it starts healing. Right? That's APM. I wouldn't mind that change, right? That just popped in my mind because that's one of the ways to make the Civ harder to play without nerfing the Civ at higher levels, but adjusting the difficulty and having French players have to spend time looking at their knights more. It's unnecessary APM requirement if there's no decision making behind. Of course there's decision making. Put a cooldown of 30 seconds and you can spam it. Then it's a decision to make. Put it 45 seconds. Put the ability, once you click it, it's gonna heal the unit to full, slowly, of course, like it does now. But it has a 60-second cooldown. So then if your knight gets attacked, it stops the healing. Right? That's only taking 2 seconds more to do actions. Well, if you have multiple knights on the map, you have to heal all of them. And if at any point they get attacked, the healing stops. How is that not making it harder to play? That makes it a lot harder to play. Like with longbow, right? Except you can add a cooldown to it. And this is, see, this is the kind of nerf I'm all up for. Because this won't change much at a high level, but it will affect a skill level of French players in lower leagues. And that's the whole point, right? Because a lot of people in lower leagues struggle with French. I'm not. This is not something I thought for like hours. It just popped into my mind now, and I would rather have them do something like that or some change similar to that instead of nerfing 100 health or 50 health or 5 damage off of knight or armor or whatever else, because that affects and nerfs the French knights quite a lot more. So yeah. Anyway. People are way too focused on the win rates, and people should focus more on what they enjoy playing. I agree that the purpose of a game is in general is to have fun. The last thing I want to do after coming home from work is to do something that stresses me out. Now, RTSs compared to other games are more competitive in nature, which means they're a bit more stressful. Are they a bit... why are RTS games more competitive in nature? What makes them more competitive? I don't agree with that. Every game is competitive. Because one-on-one? Okay, so Hearthstone is more competitive than League of Legends? You need to use brain? I mean, I probably think more in FPS games than in Age of Empires 4, because it's all muscle memory. More stressful because it's one-on-one. RTS is stressful. Okay. I mean, I guess this is subjective, right? I personally don't... For me, RTS games aren't stressful. Some other genres are, but I think that's subjective, so it's not necessarily right or wrong, right? Obviously, I'm not saying Hearthstone is stressful. Hearthstone is clearly not stressful. Turn-based is probably the least stressful thing. The goal is to win. The goal to win is more prevalent than, for example, in sandbox game, but still you can and should definitely have a good time, else the game is maybe not for you. And you can see here in the subreddit that there are multiple ways of enjoying the game. People have a blast with the really well-produced campaigns. Nomad has been in rise of popularity, I've seen. And people play with friends against AI, cool artwork, or memes incorporating AOE4. A lot of people play the game how they like to play it. Beastyqt, for example, almost exclusively plays one-on-one. Recently tried out more FFA formats. Okay, I do play exclusive one-on-one, but the way this is written is like Beastyqt hasn't entered more than 2 FFA games and 4 team games. I have over 100 team games, and I've probably played over 50-60 FFAs. So, I've played the campaign as well. I've played other mods. I do have experience in other different aspects of the game, but I do play almost all, like 95% of the time, one-on-ones, sure. The same goes for me and for a lot of other players, while in turn other players almost exclusively play team games or against AI. And that is perfectly okay. However, there's a problem that arises almost exclusively for online multiplayer matches, especially for casual players. Many players, don't worry, the last thread is where shit goes south, and it's much shorter than this one. Many players, in fact, overwhelming majority, focus on having a good time rather than going pro. A lot of those players like a certain civ the most and like to play the most. The problem arises if the civ is at a disadvantage, or if another civ is at a clear advantage. An example, I can remember so many posts here about the Firelancer being toxic and oppressive in team games, how it was unfun to play against it, and how many people argued against these posts that the Firelancer are part of the game, and if you scout carefully use walls you can defend. Sometimes the posts were disregarded from the start because the OP was just silver. Were mass Firelancers a problem in the sense that on pro level play they dominate on the ladder? Of course not, but that should not mean that we disregard the fun of the silver player that together with all other low elo players make 90% of player base of this game. If I come home from work and boot up my AOE4 playing my favorite Civ Atrium 101 having a good time, I want there to be a fair balance so that I and my opponent have an equal chance to win, and skill decides who does to a large degree. This will never happen. Like, I can tell you all right now, this will never happen. Any RTS game that has 2 races, civs or more, is not possible to be balanced. It is not possible. It's not possible, guys. It's always going to favor a civ, a race, a matchup, a map, a playstyle. It's never going to be 50%. It is just not possible. That's why I always say, if it's within 52, 53% or win rate, or 47, 48, people should, like, that is good. That is good. You cannot have 50% win rate. It's just not possible, especially with 8 civs. It's not possible. Because, let's say, he's going to use the example probably of French versus HRE. I don't even need to read. I know it's coming. How do you balance that matchup without affecting other matchups? You can't. Right? You just can't. Because whatever change you make will affect other matchups directly or indirectly. If I do a man-at-arms rain push that can be defended, I personally don't have a lot of fun. If I play against French, I feel more stressed than anything because I know from the start that the odds are against me. Okay, what is this? 62% above diamond. Okay. Out of 300 games. Again, what level is this? On diamond it's 63. Okay. That is favorable. And I always said, French is favorable against HRE. I never hit that. Or I never disagree with that. But how do you fix it? Like, what do you do, right, to make that better? Because if you nerf French in any way, right, they have, if you want to use this example, right, 62.5% is imbalance in that matchup. It is French favor. Yes. Okay, so what is the plan? You nerf knights, and then French versus Mongols goes down to 20%. So what did you fix here? So, solutions are not always just nerf it or just buff it, because it affects all the other matchups. And this is why you will never have a perfect balance. Like, it's just not possible. Pike should be buffed. Why? They're already countering knights. Guys, spears cannot win against knights 1-to-1. That is not the same cost. 3 spears are equal to 1 knight. Now, if you want to tell me that 3 spears lose to 1 knight, you're wrong. Okay? You're wrong. You're dead wrong. I don't need to test this. You are dead wrong. 15 spears versus 5 knights, they will demolish them. The problem is, people compare 1 spear to 1 knight. 1 spear is 80 resources, 1 knight is 240, including gold being part of it. The unit is way more expensive. You cannot compare 1-to-1. Spears do counter knights. But people have this weird obsession that 1 spearman should beat 1 knight. It shouldn't. Or it could, if they increase the cost of spearmen to like 160 or 180 resources, sure. But for its cost right now, it does the job that's needed. Like, that's just how it is. If spearmen costed 180, 200 resources, I have no issue of spearmen killing a knight. That makes sense to me. But that's not the case. It's way cheaper. And the chance for that is rather high because the French are one of the most picked civs. And so if people here complain about balance, and if they do in an honest and reflective manner, don't just disregard it. Take it as voice of frustration. A lot of matchups for casual players are clearly one-sided. And it is not to play a one-sided matchup, even if you're silver and you could theoretically play better. The civ doesn't suck in silver, you suck in silver, as Beastyqt likes to say, to which I say sometimes, yes, absolutely, and sometimes no. There's a clear imbalance there, which should not be disregarded like that. Okay, let's look at something else. Since we're looking at the win rates. Why is there no HRE player making posts about how broken HRE is against Delhi and how HRE should be nerfed? Why don't we see those posts? You know why? It's not about... He said the thing where he said, I don't enjoy easy wins, but I don't enjoy frustrating losses against French. People don't enjoy losing. Okay? It's not about frustrating. People don't enjoy losing. Because I haven't seen a single post of an HRE player saying, man, I'm beating Delhi too much and it's boring for me to play. No one's mentioning that. People, HRE loves it, you know? They play against Delhi, they love it. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck the matchup is imbalanced. They don't care, right? So, like, again, what do? Do we buff HRE? How do you buff it? You're gonna make this matchup, and this matchup even more HRE favored. So, like, you cannot have a 50% win rate. Like, you just can't have a 50% win rate. This is incredibly favored for French. It is. I agree. I don't disregard that. But my question is, what is the solution? You cannot nerf knights or buff units because you will affect other matchups instantly. I don't know what the solution for that is, by the way. I'm not a developer. I don't create games. I can, like, a developer can send me their change and I can say, I think that's a good or bad idea, but I don't know what would fix everything that's intertwined, right? All the matchups are intertwined with one another. And in all the matchups, you use almost all the units, right? So any change you make fucks up everything in other matchups. Solution is repeatedly making updates, trying to fix the problem with the least side effects possible. I mean, this is not medicine where we try to take the medicine that has least side effects. Any change you make will have a big impact in other matchups. That's just how it is. Like, HRE got buffed, their castle is faster, HRE stronger in most other matchups. What did it do for Delhi versus HRE? It made HRE even better, right? So while the recent changes made HRE more playable, it made HRE versus Delhi even more broken. It used to be probably 52, 53%, now it's 57. So, I don't know. It is not like I had a good time with the game, then looked at the stats and saw how bad HRE does against French and decided from there to have a bad time with the game. No, rather I felt beforehand that the matchup was unfair and not fun to play, then saw it reflected in the stats and then voiced concern. And this goes for a lot of matchups. I've mentioned French, but yeah, also HRE got a lot of favorable matchups with the latest unnecessary buffs, which are not fun to play for the other casual player. Thing is, HRE never needed to get buffed. I disagree. I personally always held the belief that the French needed to get a significant nerf since they were the civ with the most and strongest one-sided matchup, and then after that, Relic should take a look how meta adjusts and tweak remaining bad matchups based on targeted changes. See, this is the thing. So let's Omega nerf French, right? What did I do? Let's Omega nerf French. We're gonna ruin this matchup even more for French, and then we're gonna nerf Mongols to make them fine against French. But then Mongol is gonna suck even more against Rus because it already sucks. But that's fine because then we'll nerf Rus. Oh, but we're gonna make Rus worse against French. Like, where does it end? You can't just make a change. It will affect all matchups. Like, how do people not realize this? It will affect every single matchup. Like, look at Delhi versus... Like, look, imagine if you nerf Mongols. Look at fucking Mongols versus Delhi. It's 72%. Obviously, the number of games is not high, but we're using these numbers. I think main issue of French is how easy it is to play. If that would get adjusted, the win rates of French would go down a bit. Would that be enough? I don't know. But if we just take a matchup, we nerf one, that matchup's better, you will constantly be nerfing and buffing stuff. There's no end to it. If that's what, I mean, if that's the goal of the developers and if that's community wants, sure. For me, I like changes because it's like a fresh way to play the game. But my point is, not that I agree French is too strong against HRE. There will always be imbalanced matchups. Always. There always was. From the start of the game, there will always matchup favorable for one civ, and unfavorable for some. But it's like playing whack-a-mole. Like, you nerf one, you buff the other. You nerf the third, you buff the fourth. It never stops. And like whenever I see, like, people want the knights nerfed, right? If you nerf the knights, let's say you remove the knights from H2, then all the civs are starting to look alike, right? Do you think people struggle with H3 against French because they go too often Regnants? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. What about just making them worse in Feudal? Sure, but that will create different problems and different favorable matchups to other civs. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't fix anything. Yes, it will affect and fix H3 versus French, and then it will make 3 more matchups a problem. So, I don't know. You know what would fix French if you remove knights from H2? That would fix it. It would be like any other civ, and knights wouldn't be a thing. Honestly, I'm not even joking. That's a fix. Win rates would go to shit, but that would make it nerfed. But then it's not French. Well, it's the same thing. If you nerf French aggression in Feudal to the point where it's not worth to go for the aggression, that's not French either. So, I don't know. People are not obsessed with win rates. Rather, the win rates reflect what a lot of casual players feel to be unfair matchups. And this is a problem that should not be disregarded. I mean, again, I don't disagree with him. I do agree. If French and H3 can be fixed, go for it. I think it will create a bigger problem. It's like plugging one hole and 3 more popping. I think making French harder to play would be a good change. But I do still think that people are obsessed with win rates. Like, I see it in my Twitch chat, and I've seen it on Reddit. Like, the win rate for French versus H3 has gone up. And by the way, he uses diamond and above. Is this the biggest discrepancy in win rates? Yeah, he uses diamond and above, right? Because whenever people are, you know, trying to give their point of view, they pick whatever suits them the best, right? So for example, this is the only league where H3 has 60% win rate plus. If you looked at any other point, it has less. Does this mean it's fine? No. But the narrative, you know, is good. It's like if I took top 30 and I said, look, French and H3 have 50% win rate. What does that mean? It means nothing. But I do think that French is the counter to H3, 100%. I do think H3 counters Delhi. And I think this is part of the reason why in tournaments we play all 8 civs. That's French's win rate? Yeah, I'm aware. The problem comes when players play only one civ and you get stuck with a matchup that sucks for you, which, for it to be French that has second most played, does suck. But across all levels, H3 has 49.9% win rate, and it has a favorable matchup against all the civs. So the question is, and I'm genuinely curious, do you think a change is really needed because a civ struggles in one matchup but is favorable in 6 other, and the last one should be fixed as well? Because if you look at it, win per civ wise, like H3 or English versus other civs, H3 has the best win rates because it beats 6 civs on average, right? And does bad versus 1. I don't know. I'm not trying to disregard the point. I think it's just... I think it's just overplayed. Like, why don't we look at Chinese win rates and do something about that? They suck against every civ. But H3 is picked like 20% of the time, does better does best against other civs across the board, has one bad matchup. And that's what we should fix. I don't know. I don't know. It's a valid point. It is a valid point. I do agree. Like, again, for the 5th time, I agree. French is favored against HRE. Why are there no posts about these matchups? That HRE is too strong against these civs? Why is there no post against Abbasid? That HRE is too strong. 55.6, 57.9. They're not that far off. Out of those 4.3k games, how many went super greedy with no units? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot, like, I feel like these posts are like, people agree with me, but then they say something that I also agree with, but they present it as a counter argument. You know what I mean? Like, he agrees with me, but then he presents that French is too strong against Eritrea. I don't disagree with that. I do agree with that. But what do people want? And like saying nerf French knights, that's not how you balance a game. Like, you can't do that. You will absolutely ruin other matchups. So it's like, I recognize the problem. I see the problem. I play also that matchup from both sides, and I realize that it's French favored. But where do we go from there? And this is another thing. The Civ doesn't suck in Silver, you suck in Silver is an interesting discussion point. If you look at Silver League, HRE versus French matchup where French wins, did the HRE player lose because it's a bad Civ matchup, or did they lose because they were floating 3,000 resources? I'm Diamond, barely but still Diamond, and even at this level, when I look at replay of an HRE versus French game, I see so many things that I could have done better that it kind of feels like copium to blame a loss solely on that matchup. On the other hand, all things being equal, French does have an advantage over HRE at all levels. Yeah, that's just a fact. The stats tell us so. If both the French and HRE silver players are floating 3,000 resources, French is likely going to win. I don't know if that's true. That would assume you have same amount of units, right? In which case, if you're making spearmen and making knights, you win. But another point is, it's a lot easier to macro with French because the knights are more expensive, so you need to make them less often. Okay, there's a lot more very long posts, so I'm not going to go through all of them. Because this already is taking a while. But yeah, I personally don't think the game should be balanced around the silver level for those reasons, but it's also arbitrary where you draw the line for who to balance the game for. Yep. And there's no right or wrong answer, just preferences. Even pros make hundreds of tiny mistakes every game. True. Even big mistakes, not just tiny. A theoretically perfect AI player would easily beat any pro on any map with any civ, and that's how far away from balance, from perfect, even the best players are today. So should we balance the game around pro players? Probably, so that's the best we can do. Even though there are a lot more higher levels of play that can theoretically exist, we just don't know what exactly they are. And the civ balance might be completely different at those levels, sort of like chess in the pre-computer era. Yeah, I don't know. You know, the similar problem existed in StarCraft, where Terran would have crazy high win rates in lower leagues. Do you guys remember that? Terran would have the highest win rate in bronze, silver, and gold by far. They had like 60 or 65% win rate. And that was because they make a bunch of units, they press stim, and they aim, move, and they just kill everything. Because Terran units had the highest DPS in the game, Marines and Marauders, but all you needed was AoE. But Zergs and Protosses struggled a lot to counter that, right? So when I played StarCraft, there was a lot of complaints about Terran being overpowered and should be nerfed. And at the time, Zerg and Protoss were winning tournaments. So it's like, how do you fix that, right? Do you nerf Terran for the lower leagues? Or do you buff Terran to help at higher leagues? And I generally don't know what the solution is. Preferably you want to find the middle ground, right? But that's a hard thing to do. And again, I think I'll end this page with just saying that I think that making French harder to play would be the best change, in my opinion. Whether through having to click through for a heal or something else, I don't know. And then the last one. So this was the last post. Beastie video bandwagon post. I saw this one when it was posted, like just posted, and someone gifted it gold like immediately. Let me preface this by stating that I think he's generally a nice person and I enjoy most of his content very much. So this is not a personal grudge, but the entire win rates don't matter is a complete condescending bullshit. Before the tournaments introduced Civ picking rules, Civ bans the amount of times you can play a certain Civ. 80% of the matches were French mirrors, the other 20% being Mongols or H3 in Hill and Dale. Civs like Delhi and China saw almost zero play outside of meme matches. Also remember Boulder Bay, you weren't allowed to play anything but Rus there, English mirrors in Altai. Then play the game as a living, so it's normal that they will search for every possible edge in the matchups, and it's perfectly fine. What's not fine is lecturing the rest of the player base over something that you do on a regular basis. Win rates matter and the rent. Alright, let's dissect this. No one picked Delhi because it was bugged for the first 4 or 5 months of the game. The spears didn't even brace. So it's not that Delhi was awful. It was awful because nothing worked on Delhi. 80% of the matches were French mirrors. This is not true. Most playable race was Mongols by far, I think. Pretty sure Mongols were most played Civ by far, followed up by French, English, and Rus. If you guys remember the one base horse archer rush with Rus, that was extremely popular, and Rus was probably the most banned Civ together with Mongols early on. I don't think French was ever most banned Civ. I'm probably wrong. There was probably a month where it was most banned, but from what I remember, Mongol was extremely banned early on, then Rus was always perma-banned because of horse archers, and then it moved on to Delhi once Delhi was fixed. Someone that maybe played tournaments from the start can correct me on that, but I feel that's how the bans went. Yeah, that's a good point. French was maybe the most played Civ because it was never banned. But even then, I don't think it was the most played. I'm pretty sure that Mongol Rus were played more early on. I'm talking like first 4 to 5 months. And then Delhi was the most played, or most banned. Thus, it saw no play. And then Mongols and Rus were probably most played until Rus Horse Archers got nerfed. And then they saw a lot less play. And then the boar build got figured out. And then Rus saw a lot more play again. Early Genesis best of ones did, but that was release week. Yeah, I didn't play Genesis, so maybe that's true. Yeah. Prior to Genesis, everyone thought French was by far the best, but the actual event, it didn't turn out that way. Yeah, again, I didn't play Genesis. I just started playing during Genesis, so I can't say because I don't know. Also remember Boulder Bay, you weren't allowed to play anything but Rus there. English Mirror and Altai. I'm pretty sure you could have always played other Civs on Altai. Rus Boulder Bay is 100% true. Rus was by far the strongest there. So, yeah. And that is a map issue, not a Civ issue. And that's the reason why we don't play it competitively more, because it doesn't matter what they nerf or change. The sole fact that Rus boats can transform and they don't drop off the food makes them OP, and it will always be the case. So, me saying that people should play what's fun, like, by the way, I didn't mean to lecture anyone. People can play whatever they want. My whole point of the video was you should play what you enjoy playing rather than focusing on the win rates. Like, I never said that people should stop posting suggestions or constructive criticism about the game or how they feel the matchup is this or that way. I never said that. I said that people should try and play what they find fun rather than what has a 1% or 2% more win rate. That is all I said. That is all I said. And at the end of the day, your Civ is not holding you back to win games in gold. Because as much as, and I'll use the example of HRE, as much as French is favored against HRE, HRE is favored against other civs. So if you want to use statistics, you should still be able to advance leagues and progress, even if that matchup is unfavorable for you. Whichever civ you play, the win rates are not that awful that you won't be winning a lot of the games or winning close to 50%. My point is, you should play what you find fun, because it's a video game and you're supposed to have fun, rather than this has 1% higher, so that means it's OP and it's unbeatable. That's it. Just because people play a civ doesn't mean it's better. If you're not at the top level, you can pretty much ignore all matchup discussions. Just focus on the civs you enjoy. Your improvement will not be hindered by balance. I would even go as far as to say that there would probably be more civ diversity if the collective conscious of Reddit, Twitch streams didn't obsess over balance that much. Just using the example player that OP uses, Beastyqt has been a China main since release. Throughout the last year, China has been one of the best civs, one of the worst civs, and mostly a slightly higher than mid-tier civ. Despite being the best player on Earth, with the only exception of being Marine Lord, he's never mained the virtually undisputed top 2 civs. Obviously, just talking about one-on-ones, China is OP in team games, but that doesn't really apply to Beastyqt. I mean, I have played a lot of China and a lot of Mongols in tournaments when they were bad or good. And this is what I even mentioned in the video. I said, even at a high level, I mean, my main civ I would say is probably Mongols, but I did play a shit ton of China. And that was the dark times of when I was walling off everything. I played a lot of China then. But one of the points that I made in the video is even the pro players, tippity top, and I don't mean myself, but we see, for example, Vortex and Luceron pick English a lot in tournaments, right? They pick English a lot. I don't. They think it's good, they see something in it, and they're playing it. They're not saying, hey, this civ has higher win rate, I'm going to play that. And they play for money. So, I'm not saying even if I'm not saying this is a condescending or superior. What I'm saying is even player at the highest level prefer playing what they are more familiar with, they are better with, they have more fun with, rather than what's good. And you will perform better. In my personal opinion, I've been gaming for 30 years. That's my point. Not to lecture someone. Like, people can play whatever they want. I don't care. It doesn't affect me in any way. I like Beastyqt because he's self-aware that the shit he says aren't the word of God, nor should we take everything from everything he says like holy scriptures. True. I don't think you should take everything. Like, if I say that French versus HRE is favored, that doesn't mean you should give up on the matchup, right? If I say this civ favors this civ, that's maybe on my level. Maybe you have a different strat. Maybe you figured out something in your league that gives you higher win rate, right? There's so many intricacies around it that nothing should be taken for granted. Like, even if I'm the best or second best or third best player, it doesn't mean that I'm always right, because my experience in a video game at a level that I play is different from yours. So I can't be right. Like, if I tell you, like, a lot of people ask me, and I think I saw it in this thread, that I should make civ tier list for gold. How? I'm not gold. I don't know what's OP and what's good in gold. Like, that's crazy. Just the same way that gold players shouldn't make a top civs for pro gamers. You don't know what's top. Right? I think that makes sense. Yet people keep doing this. He strongly emphasizes most of the time that his opinions are but opinions of one guy from one perspective. Yet people take it as gospel. I find it hilarious. You see this especially in AOE4 official forums. When people are having a debate about something, if someone refers to "but Beasty said so," people are quick to shut up. I find the whole thing ridiculous. He's a pro player, believe many of the things he says have a solid and valid point, but they rarely pay the full picture of things, and he's sometimes blindsided by things as well, simply because they're outside of his perspective, such as team game balance and even FFA mega random. Of course, when he started playing, he started realizing a thing or two. Well, the only thing I started realizing when I played Mega Random is that my suspicion of China being the best civ was true. What I didn't know is that Mongol is also probably best or second best civ. Team game balance. The only thing I realized in team game balance is that French and English are not the best comp in 2v2, and that all civs are playable in 2v2. And if anyone thinks otherwise, that's fine. But if I play 2v2s, I think that any matchup and any civ combo is fine to play. That's my personal opinion. That's my personal experience. Now, you can listen to that, or you don't need to listen to that. But if I... whatever. Yeah. Like, the 3v3 and 4v4, like, there's no meta. You know what I mean? There's no... You can play any civ. It's 3v3 and 4v4. Like, you can play 3 Mongols and win. You can play 3 English and win. You can play English, French, whatever you want, and you can win. I don't think there's a team comp problem in team games or whatever. I do think that French is good in team games. But that's normal. He doesn't deny necessarily this complete noob in some things, even if he's a pro gamer. I also think the whole message behind the win rate doesn't matter comes down to a regular player. We shouldn't be discouraged to play the civs that we personally like just because win rate says so. Yeah. And I fully support this idea. Fuck the win rate. I play Abbasid, Feudal, Tradewing, Chat any day because it's fun. There we go. Like, yeah. I'm super surprised there was butthurtness towards that video. Like, does everyone here want to go pro? This is the mindset I wish most people had. Just play what's fun and do your best. Hell, most fun I have is when I'm playing a faction that's an underdog. What tournament allowed same civ? Even the very first big tournament, Genesis had these rules in place. Oh, I didn't even see this. Amount of times you can play a certain civ. There was never a rule that you can play same civ multiple times, right? If I'm not mistaken, but I don't think there was ever a tournament where you could pick same civ over and over. But either way, my goal was never to be my point was never to be like rude or lecture people or be condescending towards players. My point was just play what's fun. That's it. Like, yeah, fuck yeah, still give constructive criticism. Like, what's weird to me is like some people have this like idea that I don't care and that like just get good Lamau. Like, I talk with developers, like, I'm not gonna say daily, but I talk to developers multiple times a week to try to make game better. Like, I'm not typing to developers, yeah, fuck HRE, dude, nerf them to the ground. I always try to find a middle ground. Like a lot of people, for example, were molding, or like not molding, but they were calling me like the guy who can only win with Siege. I was fine with Siege nerfs. I was like giving developer suggestions for different Siege nerfs. Some of them I agree with, some of them I disagree with. Like, even if it hurts me or doesn't hurt me, whatever. Like, I'm trying to help people and I'm trying to help the game. I don't get anything if I convince Joe in gold that HRE vs French is winnable. I don't care. Like, I don't gain anything from it. And if Joe or Bob, French versus HRE, if one wins or the other, it doesn't hurt me or affect me in any way. I'm just trying to tell you that you should be looking for fun and not, like, focus on things that you don't have effect on. Yes, you can make a constructive post. Fuck yeah. And I know that developers read these things, but that's all. It's a game. Some EGC TV, right. EGC TV, one of the rounds for Golden League had the same civ. That is right. But that was a one tournament, so that's kind of a weird example. These tournaments you're talking about are at the top level, to which he is referring to when making a tier list, so you have nothing you have stated disagrees with him. So nothing you have stated disagrees with him. Win rates do matter at the top level, but as he states, people in lower leagues shouldn't care about win rates and focus on playing what they enjoy. I don't see what's condescending about that. I also, when I saw this post, by the way, I only read the first post, the main post of the guy, and I was like, what did I do? What did I say? I just told people to have fun. The Beastie video was made explicitly to counter this OP's post about Abbasid win rates. I may not agree with the OP since win rates mean nothing, but it would be hard not to take offense to being featured negatively in a high-profile player stream. I'm trying to remember, when did I use his Abbasid win rates? Was that in this video? On the previous video? Okay, I generally don't remember. But if I did, if I offended him in any way, if I said something that was rude, that my apologies, but I don't, yeah. I can't remember, genuinely. I get to cry about matchups, but you don't because you suck. What matchups do I cry about? Like, genuinely. What matchups do I cry about on my stream? I'm probably the person that complains the least about matchups. Like, I don't like getting tower rushed, but that's not a matchup. Anytime you play Kazba, but that's not a matchup. Like, literally, what matchup do I complain about? Whenever I play a game, like at the start, I usually say, oh, this matchup is good for me, this matchup is bad for me. If I lose a game like Delhi versus HR, I say, yeah, this matchup is tough and I don't know what I can do. That's not me complaining about it, it's just me stating my opinion. His post was wondering why people said Abbasid was good against HRE when they still had a bad win rate above Diamond. Oh, that's what okay. Yeah, so that was the post where people were saying that Abbasid has a terrible matchup into HRE. And I used that as an example to say that it does have a decent matchup at higher levels. I love how he put this in the thing, like, I said this. I get to cry about matchups, but you don't because you suck. Like, I literally never said that. What part of that is not condescending? Like, other people said HRE French versus bust matchup whether you're a world champion or someone who plays 2 games a day. Honestly, I don't feel the point of the video was to cancel anyone's opinions who are below Conqueror. It's just seem more about progressing from being unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent. There's nothing wrong with sucking, it's all relative anyway. You improve when you self-reflect on your shortcomings and build on it, not by blaming things outside your control. Yeah. I always said this. Even a rank 10 player sucks compared to higher ranked players. Rank 20 player sucks compared to rank 5 player. Gold player sucks compared to platinum, but he's a god in the eyes of bronze. Like, it's all relative. What's good and what's not. Complete condescending bullshit sums up Beastyqt style pretty well. The problem with this community is anything a programmer says is paid way too much attention and is super analyzed like the final truth, while in fact this information is only relative to other 15 to 20 pro gamers, a little used to the community at large. Someone who plays H4 for a living is lecturing people who play H4 for fun. This is fundamentally different perspective and makes Beastyqt totally out of touch with the community. What? I might be out of touch with my brain because I don't understand what the... What? I just said play for fun. What? My God. How are people... Dude, you guys know when I make a video and I say 10 times, by the way, this is for high level. It's for people like this guy. Because how many times could I have said in that video... I'm just saying play for fun. And what this guy got out of it is that I'm lecturing people who play H4 for fun, and I'm providing information relevant to 15 to 20 pro gamers. Yeah, I was talking to Marine Lord that he shouldn't play the best Civ and he should just play Civs that are fun. That's right. You know, Wham, Puppy Paw, Marine Lord, everyone else. Listen, play for fun, guys. Don't play HRE. It's a bad Civ. You know what I mean? Just play for fun. Like, what? It's not his fault, it's just how it is. Reiterating what I said elsewhere, even if we're told a million times that it's also second order civ, doesn't make English versus air trade versus French a fair and balanced matchup. Didn't he specifically say that what he says is intended for pro players and it's not intended for lower ranked players as he doesn't share their experiences? Yeah, that's what I said. I do think people can play however they want, but personally for me, I like to not get stressed out by civ picks, which is why I always pick random. Bro, did you watch the video? He explicitly says he POV applies only to the pros. His videos are only for pros, and yet his channel is aimed at all AOE4 community. See the problem there? It's kind of a disingenuous thing to say because he's surely got means of communicating with fellow pros. You don't make a video to address 10 people. How do people like this exist? I make videos because it's content, right? I have a YouTube channel. That's my job. Listen, no one comes to me and asks me, hey Beastie, what's the best civ in silver? Fuck I know. I'm not silver. I don't know. You know why I make videos for top level? It's because if people are interested in that. That's why I make it. Not to lecture people, it's because that's what people want. People ask me, what do you think is the best civ at the pro level? What do you think is the best strategy? No one's like, hey Beastie, what's the best strategy against AI? I don't fucking know. I don't play against AIs. Like, and see, guys, this is why I repeat things 10 times and people still manage to just twist the words and completely misunderstand everything. What? Like, also, he's molding? Like, I'm sorry, this guy, I was chill until now. This guy is molding that I make content that's not geared towards AOE4 community. Listen, baboon, I literally have guides for all 8 civs that a fucking gold player can execute. I literally have Get Good with Beastie series where I explain things why I do them. Like, what are you smoking? Out of any, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be like the fucking on a high horse. Out of anyone in this community, I provide the most education content by anyone. Feel free to correct me on that one, by the way. Give me a fucking proof. Who made more guides and explaining more shit than me in this community? Who? Tell me. One person. No one's even close. What are you... Oh my god. Jesus Christ. Like... And it's not even close, by the way. The guides that I made... The Get Good series, they're not even, if you want to look at the stats, since people want stats, the view numbers aren't even close comparatively. Guys, listen, I'm going to make an official apology. French versus HRE is unwinnable in all leagues. You can't win that matchup. Don't try. It's unbeatable. Every loss you have is because of balance. It's not your fault. And also, don't play AOE4 for fun. Fuck the fun. The only reason you should play the game is to climb ranks, look at win rates, compare dick sizes, and whenever you lose a game, quickly go on AOE4 World and check if it's in balance or did the guy outplay you. If the numbers, let me give you a guide. If the numbers are red, that means you lost to imbalance. If they're green, it's because you're a good player. And remember, most of all, don't have fun. Don't have fun at all. Next time you go on the ladder, I hope you have a terrible fucking time. I hope you get tower rushed and I hope you just come through with your erect, throbbing skill and win all the matchups. And don't worry, any matchup you lose, just remember, it's like bingo. If it's red, that means it's imbalanced. It's not imbalanced, it's not your fault. You're still a better player, and that's it. And yeah, that's what I'm gonna conclude this video. And from now on, you know, Marine Lord and the other pros, I am done making Civ tier lists for you guys. Figure out game on your own, you stupid shitters. You know nothing. Every time I gotta tell you what civs to play, what's OP, what's bad. Figure it out on your own, or transfer me some money and I'll tell you how to play the game, you dumb asses. I'm gonna start making Civ tier lists for Joe and Bob because that's what matters. I have a lot of experience in Joe and Bob leagues. I play there all the time. I mean, quickly, let's just run it through. French, S tier, all other civs are trash. There you go. That's the next Civ tier list video. Fucking hell. Anyway, I'm gonna finish this one right here. Thank you everyone for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, on Twitch, let's go play some games. And hopefully not have fun. Because that's something I wouldn't even wish my worst enemy to have fun in the game. You know why? Because I don't want to be a condescending piece of shit that I am from my high horse. Thank you for watching, and let's go play ladder.